Welcome to Bringing Magic Down to Earth, where we are talking about making spiritual gifts feel attainable. I'm Kate Hood, and today I'm talking to Karen Kartika. Karen is a holistic healer, a human potential activator, a business coach, and an artist. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, well, I'm so excited to get to know you a little bit better. So let's start with that. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself or a lot
Okay,
about
a
yourself?
lot
Your
about
choice.
myself. All right, I'm a lot of a person. Well, I'm gonna give a little bit brief history of me. I was born and raised in Indonesia. Then I sort of kind of decided to want to be out of the house and out of the country completely. My dream has always been to come to the US. I don't know why, but it's always kind of like right there. Maybe it was New Kids on the Block that I used to watch a lot in my teenage years and seeing Boston in the view. And I'm like, I want to be there. But I was so insistent that once I graduated from high school that I'll be, going to the US that somewhere, somehow, because I made that commitment and just saying it to the world, to whoever was listening, and then to my parents. It's like, I want to move to the US. And like doors is just opening up for me in a way that I didn't really expect it. Because coming from Indonesia, we didn't even speak English. And this is 1980s, like where English is not so um, uh, taught in school or used in public. So I had like a lot of self-esteem in like, would I be able to speak the language? So one funny dinner time, my parents and I were just going out for dinner, and we met with his old schoolmate from college, and conversation going, and they said like, oh, actually all my children's are in Australia. I was like, pick my interest, like, oh, how come your children's are in Australia? Because they're all my age. Oh yeah, I figured they'll be able to, catch up and learn English better because they're already in an English speaking country. And I'm like, that's very interesting. So I spoke to my father. It's like, you know what? Why don't I go to Australia first because the US, so that at least I know how to speak and wrote my essays for my college application in the US since I'm already in an English speaking country. And he's like, but you're too young. I'm like, yeah, but your friends' children are all there. And one way at the one led up to the other, I'm in Australia with my father's best friend or friends from college kids. And that would just kind of like all of a sudden, whatever I was thinking about desiring or dreaming about moving to Boston, which actually I ended up moving to Boston. That was the first city that I landed when I moved to the US. And things sort of just kind of fall into place without I was even trying so hard. And I feel like that was kind of my beginner introduction to the world of magic, um, the gifts of being in this world where everything that you desire or what you think you want can easily happen. And unfortunately, as I grew older, things become complicated, right? Going to college, work, and trying to, move the ladder in the corporate world, trying to make money, trying to then live in, in a culture where, well, clock is ticking, Karen, you're 30. How come you're not married? So all of that added to that complexity of believing that everything is possible, that suddenly my world become like, well, there's a script here that you need to follow and you need to make it happen. And that's when I notice I sort of kind of want to be the good girl and follow that script. But I also know that another side of me feeling like, but that's not it. There could be more. There could be something else. Like, it's not that. It took me a while to struggle through those periods until suddenly things are breaking down around me, and I decided, okay, I wanted to give this my time to really pursue whatever it is that I've been putting on the side just because I was trying to follow that script. And even trying to follow that script, the script didn't happen. I was still not married. I was still single. I had a great career, but I was suffering. I hated the job. I didn't want to go to work sometimes. I'd have like, calling sick today. I couldn't make it. And it's just becoming a continuance to a point that I was actually working in Indonesia, and then that job brought me back to the US, and I was working at a beautiful office, a headquarter office in Chicago, 27th floor. And I'm looking down, I'm like, so I thought I made it, but didn't really feel great. It didn't feel great at all. I'm in this beautiful view, then why? I mean, I'm still not happy here. So that's when I realized, okay, I needed to try something else. I didn't say that it was a good transition because I took a jump without a plan. Some say, well, that's great for you. And although it was great, but the trial and error, because I didn't really, I mean, we're talking about early, well, actually not 2020, 2010. I didn't really have what we now have, the like the spiritual teaching or coaches who can help guide through this transition. So I kind of have to learn as it goes. And I ended up learning a little bit of coaching because I was listening to a webinar, and this lady who's a psychotherapist, but also a coach, was just kind of like, whatever she was saying was exactly what I needed to hear, that I reached out to her and said, I needed to know how you got all this information and how you created your life the way that you created your life using these principles. So that was my first introduction to coaching, but I was still using a lot of the old paradigm of being accepted in society, which means you have to work something that is more recognizable in the society to be able to make money. So I put the coaching skills aside and I went into real estate. I went back to work for a little bit in advertising company and all of that. And finally, about 5 years ago, I realized, you know what? There's a lot of spiritual gifts that came through me. And by then it was like a combination of hypnotherapy, energy healings, and all that. And I noticed that when I was not working my gifts, the energy level that I have to be able to just stay present and be happy, right? Because what else do you do except for being happy? Like whatever you work on, right? Then I was like, okay, I could stay in trying to continue with this, trying to be accepted by a lot of people, or I jump into this, this other side of me, which probably will raise a lot of people's eyebrows, but it made me happy. So that's when I said, okay, all right, I'm going to cross the line and start doing that. I'm not going to say again, this is just for everybody out there who's listening. Listen to your own word of what it is that you're not believing in yourself. I had to learn that the hard way because, like I mentioned, as I'm retelling the story, I noticed those words again, right? The things that I put myself as like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm choosing this side, but even this side, it's a box because I put the limitation for people to just see me for who I am. For me to also believe that I could be doing this and I'm happy and I could make this as a living, right? So then that is something that I have to, in my own practice, releasing a lot of those beliefs, those thoughts, those words. I'm really careful nowadays with the words that I think or even say, because I notice those words are very important in creating this and making or creating what it is that I want to create, because the words that I chose can put me in a restraint or boundaries or a box, or it can put me in unlimited potentials. And more I'm leaning toward like, I want to be there. I don't want to limit myself when I'm creating something that it will only come out in a certain way. It is a very hard practice, especially coming from background who's very analytical, so we're like, I have to plan the whole thing. I have to know what's going on. And then I keep seeing visions like, actually, it's going to happen this way. And then I'm like, wait a minute. How am I going to bridge between here and there? And that's when I'm like, oh, I even question it. What if I just allow it to be? What if in this moment, I'm going to just ask, being presented with possibilities, next steps. And in that moment as well, as a practice, I'm saying yes to things that even I am like, oh, I don't really think this is right. That's when I know, okay, I'm just going to give it a try. Who knows? And even the language try, I'm trying to eliminate, because try means like you're just like dipping one foot and then the other is still in the back, right? I'm like, I'm just going to go with it. And I keep doing that. And it's once the physical body and the mind or the emotion starting to get used to it, it's almost kind of like you're swimming, right? Somebody throw you in the water, you're like, oh. And after a while, you're like, oh, I got this. So that's the process that I have to go through. And to be honest, for a while I was battling because I'm 47 now. And everybody else, my friends, they're like married, kids, having like steady, stable life. And here I am, la 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 la, and like pedaling here, pedaling there. And that's another limiting beliefs that I also have to work through, because looking at today's day and age with technology, with how people have evolved, you never know what you can actually create at any age of time. So I hope that story also will inspire anybody who's listening here, who are thinking like, oh, maybe it's too late for me, or I'm too old, or it will not be possible. We're in an age of quantum. Everything is possible. I mean, back in the days, all this kind of teachings are sort of kind of hidden. I mean, people always say occult studies or metaphysics kind of like taboo, but in fact, this is the secret teaching that can liberate anybody to become their potential. So, if you're watching this and whatever interviews have been sort of kind of pique your interest, I feel like this is the time for you to explore all these teachings that is probably so and so might say, oh, no, that's bad thing or that's taboo, but peek and see and experience it yourself, because this is the time that everyone should explore what it feels like to be something that not scripted, something that is just not what has been shown to you, right? What you have to be, what you as a woman or man need to be. And I was listening to this writer. His name is Gabor Mate. I might have pronounced his name wrong, but he's a doctor, and he worked with a lot of dying patients in the past, and he wrote a book, and the book is, I forgot his book, but something about normal. Normal is not normal, because he even saw in his patients those who are following scripts, those who are trying to make their life super good and right and following orders and being super kind. They ended up cutting their life short because they might not have explored what it is to feel very authentic in themselves. Authentic means exploring whatever it is they desire in their life and really putting and pouring their heart out for themselves. And that's my wish for a lot of people, is to follow the joy, follow what makes you happy. Life is short anyway, but why not? What if, that's the word I want to use, what if you could live this short life with pure joy, excitement, healthy body, healthy mind, so that you can see what this world got to offer. I mean, I love to travel. I haven't even finished traveling all over the place. I still kind of like, oh, I just like this place, but what about this side? Like, oh yeah, all right, that's the next one. So that's something that I wish I could spread to everyone, to continue just like, all right, what's next? What's out there? What can I expand? What can I see more? Or even if this is also calling to you, what would it take for me to love myself even more? Because that will also open the door to start answering that heart's desire that you sometimes kind of confuse yourself with, like, oh, I don't know what I want. I just know that, as long as my husband's happy or my kids are happy, then I'm good. But what if you allow yourself to love yourself more and start seeing the world from your point of view and experience the world fully for yourself? Because it's so exciting. It's full of love, your joy. So, why not?
I really love everything you said about it not being too late, and you can reinvent yourself over and over and over again. And it was so interesting you're talking about the people dying and having like not really let themselves live their own life. They just followed a script. You know how it's, I hate to say like they say, because who knows, like maybe someone said that once, what is the statistic, but apparently they say that people who retire age very quickly after retiring. And
Yes.
it's because they just thought, okay, well, I have my job and these are all my purposes, but then when that's all stripped away and they're left with it's just me, that's a real opportunity. Like they could actually at that point be like, who am I going to be now? And like have all of this time to really explore that and like maybe take classes. And but it's like, oh, I don't know, I was my job and now that's gone, so I guess I'm going to get old and die.
Yeah, and I noticed this with my own parents, and it took me a while to accept that they are from different generation, and it will take a lot of time for them to start reframing and start seeing things different way. But it's like once you hit a certain age, and this is very Asian, typical Asian culture as well. Well, once you hit a certain age, you're like, all right, I have 10 more years until I die. It's like,
Oh, so it's the countdown starts. I know. I'm always like, I'm gonna live to be 100. And every once in a while I'll think like, well, I gotta like kind of specify a little bit what that 100 looks like. I don't
yeah.
want to spend like 90 to 100 being that woman who never dies. Like, oh my God, we have to go visit great grandma Kate again. She just sits there all day. Like I want to be vibrant and like, living a full life up to age 100. And then who knows?
Absolutely. And it's possible. And I mean, Netflix just did a documentary on the blue zones of people who are living in 100, and they're like, people who are in 90s and traveling and laughing and still, have a great body and walking around and do volunteers and stuff like that. I'm like, that's exactly who I want to be. Whatever it is I'm doing right now, I'm shooting for that. So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, I'm something obviously in all of this self-exploring that you did, you were taking classes. First of all, I love that you contacted a coach and said, "Here's what I want from you. I want to do what you do. I want you to tell me how I can have your life, not just." I mean, it's very specific, but I do think we often like start with personal development is sort of like feeds into the spiritual development because it makes so much sense, and
Mhm.
it's and anybody can access it, and it doesn't, and it's so mainstream now, like there's
Yeah.
so many books that people look, I mean they use it for big business now, so it's easy to do that and it doesn't feel weird or woo woo.
Yeah.
But if you really get into it, you'll find yourself like falling into, oh, I'm going to take this class or watch this video. And suddenly you're hearing things like, what does that mean? And it's that slippery slope into spiritual development. And that's kind of what happened for me. I just remember being like, what's a star seed? Like, what does that even mean? Like, but then I'd look it up and like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was a huge part of like figuring out who I am. Is just, it's not shutting things down immediately because it's different or weird. And
Mhm.
I'm totally fine with being like, well, that's really weird. But and so I want to learn more about it because that's what I do now. It's like the more weird something is, and where I'm like, all right, I got to find out more about that and not be afraid of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we were talking when I was starting to, started my own personal development. It was in 2010, 2011. And I was not ready. Well, to be honest with you, I actually was already exposed to a lot of energy healing prior to that. But I don't like what I was seeing, because that means I have to go meditate somewhere or be in the yoga position or not eating meat and all of that. I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't, no, I like what I like. And I didn't really want to give up on that, which I've like in my own journey. I also noticed that all of that is, again, it's just personal beliefs, right? All the teachings are part of beliefs of people created, because when they were going through their spiritual journey, they had to go and do that. But I'm a believer now, and especially this last few years, it's funny because when I first learning about well, thank God for internet as well, because now you can just think of something and you can Google, and right there's some information, or Amazon with all the plethora of books and a lot of great writers out there who are writing books that I would have not have researched before. And this year I got really interested in Western mysticism. And there are a lot of the teaching that I was it sort of kind of then make it click to me that if you introduce me then of this type of mysticism, I would probably have rejected it, because like, oh no, what is this? This is too out there. It's the same thing with the yoga. It's like, oh, too woo-woo. With like, what's with the hair and like not coming out of the wood for like few days and not speaking there, the silent meditation was a huge deal back in the days. And I'm like, no, there's got to be a better way. So anybody out there right now who are in their spiritual journey, now that I'm understanding it, is like what you said, right? Finding out about who you are. And there's gazillion ways to do so. And we could really go into the rabbit hole of trying this out, trying that out, which is, I have to say, the fun part, right? I was learning astrology, human design, numerology, palm street, all of that. At the end of the day, I realized that I already know who I am. Like it or not, I already know who I am. Do I let myself be who I am? That's the biggest challenge for me. Because as I'm also starting to read astrology for other people, I've seen people with the reverse chart successful, know who they are, create things with ease and flow and whatever. And I'm like, looking at the charts, I'm like, how? But because he's so aware of like his own like, well, if I'm in this space, I know it's part of me that I know I have to sort of kind of like not overcome but transcend myself. And I push myself that I can be not just what I believe or what I can do, but more, because I see that it's possible. And I've seen chart, including myself, that it looks beautiful, and it's like, oh, every time I went to a reading, yeah, there's nothing wrong with you. I'm like, what? Really? Nothing wrong with me? Seriously? Come on, there's got to be something here. And they're like, yeah, no. You just like, this is your shadow part. If you're in this place, like, I have a lot of fear of rejection. I have a lot of fear of not being loved and accepted. It's like, if you know yourself being in that position, this is just your shadow talking. Yeah, and then I'm like leaving the reading room, and I totally forgot. And it's over and over until I start to see that in myself, in my day-to-day, catching myself when I'm going down the rabbit hole of being, self-pity, victim of like, oh, I am being rejected. Maybe I should just reject that before I get rejected. Or when I'm starting to feel like, oh, she's not paying attention enough to me, so maybe I'm not gonna work with her, or things that sometimes we feel like it's small thing, or we're trying to protect ourselves by giving boundaries. It's the thing that may actually stop us from flowing to that unlimited possibility, that abundance that's already in here. Because when we're starting to believe that we can only survive in this world in this a certain way, because especially if you're starting to learn about the spirituality world of the metaphysics, who you are based on certain numbers, planetaries, and things like that. My invitation to you is great, know all of that. However, it is within your own power to create. You can create anything, anything. And I was talking to a mentor of mine who also reminded me yesterday, it's like, yeah, astrology is great. I follow it, but you know your magic, right? Like, yeah, that's right. I'm magic.
Mhm.
Whatever. At this moment, I can create a better emotions for myself. In this moment, I can create a better thought for myself. I don't really need to be in the ditch for a day because so and so said something to me. So that is the power that I want to also, impart to everyone who's here. And I need to sometimes hear it myself that I can create from moment to moment. I can create.
Yeah. And when you talk about like astrology and all those other modalities, sometimes you have to remind ourselves like, okay, this is just a tool. There are people living amazing lives who know nothing about astrology. They don't know, they basically know what their sign is, but that's it. And somehow they are aligned and they are manifesting. So you pick your tool that works for you. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't determine. It's like if you find out something in your astrological chart that you're like, I don't feel like that's me. It's like, well, your perception of what you're reading is very negative. So this might not be the tool you want, because it is what it is, but you can choose the perspective you want to take, or like what you think that means. But
Absolutely.
ultimately it all comes down to you deciding like, what do you think and what do you believe? And if you believe like, I need somebody to teach me how to be magic, I need somebody to teach me the right modality so that I can be an energy healer. I mean, honestly, like I've taken a bunch of energy healing classes, and so I know how to do certain things. But when it comes right down to it, what do? What I was doing before and didn't realize I was doing, which is all having to do with like negative, helping people release negative energy. I was doing that my whole life when I was with friends and things, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I could have lived a totally different life and never known about any of this stuff, but still been completely, aligned and being my authentic self and doing my own work, but maybe just viewing it a different way, thinking like, oh, I'm just a really good psychologist, or, whatever path I chose. So it's not so much about the what you're doing, or like, what you're choosing to label your modality, but like, what's the energy behind it? And that's just you.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You're right. It's just you. You come down to earth. You came down to earth being you, fully, wholly you, with all your gifts and strength and power. And whether or not you're in the spiritual journey and you're starting to want to work your gift under the title of energy healers, or you continue doing your work as a lawyer, and at the same time you use your energy healing skills to align the energy in the room, to align the energy in how you present your case and everything like that, that's also possible. So you're so right. I mean, we often forget that um we have everything that we need. And sometimes in the process spiritual journey, we feel like we always have to continue seeking. And I noticed that with myself, in the 10 years of working and, working on myself and going through this journey, doesn't mean that, anybody needs to like just drop your journey. No, there's a lot of, when we're stepping into this, there's a lot of like, removing that old script, right? And sometimes that removing that old script can happen just in a moment like that, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm aware. Or for somebody who like me, who like to see things step by step, it took me a while, and I seek for validation. And I realized that in my journey, what I was looking through or working through in my spiritual journey, it was just validation. At the end of the day, I was seeking validation for myself, for validating who I am. Finally, I met a mentor who said, well, you validate yourself. Why do you give it to somebody else, to a chart, to a number, to a book, to another YouTube clip to validate who you are? You are who you are. You're powerful. You're powerfully created. You're wonderfully created. You're wholesome as you are. That's, I think that's the magic that now, looking back, I was introduced to Louise Hay mirror work 10 years ago. And I was like, I excel on this. Look myself in the mirror. I look so proud of myself that I love you and all that. But only recently I realized of that the deeper power of the mirror work, of really seeing through my own eyes and starting to say, it's not just about the I love you, but like, I actually believe in you. I trust you fully that you're capable to do this work, whatever and however it is that you want. You can create however and whatever you want to create in this life. And being able to just say the things that you want to manifest instead of going into like, well, am I too late? Is this acceptable? Will people find it funny, weird, and all of that? So that's the wonderful thing about that mirror work that I'm starting to sort of kind of like, okay, because so much of like, with the current spiritual trending as part of like, everybody's healing, everybody needs healing, all great, which I totally love because now everybody's so aware of it. But a lot of the teaching out there can become very surface level, that people don't, it's just like when you have a headache, you pick up Tylenol, right? Or ibuprofen or anything like that to help with the symptoms. But the work in the spirituality and spiritual journeying is the work that is so deep, that is, it can be fun and can also be uncomfortable. But the work itself, it's about accepting ourselves fully and trusting that we are capable beyond measure to be who we are. And that is something that that cannot just be done with like how I did my mirror work 10 years ago of like, oh yes, I could see myself in the mirror and I can say, I love you to that mirror reflection over and over again. There's that like deep sense of, coming home. That is, it can take a while if you're resistant to it, or you feel like, oh, I'm like, you have a checklist, or like, oh yeah, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this, and you feel like, oh yeah, I've done my my spiritual thing. And but my invitation is like, take your time, and really being really deep and intimate with yourself. It's funny thing is, for a lot, I'm speaking to my culture as well. We are not given the time to be very intimate with ourselves, not even in relationship with other people. It's, we're not, especially in my generation, we're not raised to say I love you. Our parents are like, I raised you, I gave you money, I gave you food, I gave you house, I love you. But with this, no, I love you. Like, that's love for them, right? That's their love language. So whatever it is that you feel like, oh, I wish I could hear it from somebody else, give it to yourself. Whatever you feel like, oh, I wish they accept me for who I am, give that to yourself. Oh, if people will believe in me and give me that job or give me that promotion, give it to yourself. Because that's when you actually do your spiritual awakening, spirit journeying, and opening the gift, because the gift is basically you. You're here is a gift to the world. And the more that you can start believing in that, the faster that you're now opening up those gifts for other people. And that's like unlimited potentials and possibilities that you're opening up.
Yeah, and the gifts that, so I think people will have ideas of specific things they want to do, like, and we can talk about energy work, but somebody might say like, well, I feel like I have guides and I get guidance, but I would really like to feel like a more tangible relationship, like a perceivably tangible, like feeling like I can kind of, like they're showing me things, seeing or hearing, or they really want to develop specific things. And it's my belief that like that is totally possible, but from well, I mean, I did another one of these summits. I've been listening to a lot of things. I've been talking to a lot of people. And one thing that kind of keeps coming through is you have to start where you are. And you cannot suddenly become someone else and do what they do. First, you have to expand who you are. And like, what is it that you do? And if you think like, well, I don't really do anything, well, you do something and you just don't think it's a big deal because you're used to it. But there's somebody else who would be looking at you saying like, wow, you can do that. I can't do that. So
Yeah.
like what, that's the first question is like, and you have to have an answer. You can't say nothing. What makes you magical? Like, what would you consider to be something that happens in your life? It's like, okay, it's like by definition, it's kind of magical. Um, and then start with that. Now, what is it that you do energy work and healing, but do you work with guides? What does that look like for you?
I work, okay, when I work mostly with energy healing nowadays, and I um, allow my hypnotherapy trainings to help with deepening the experience. And especially when I know that it requires not just the energy, but as well as conscious either letting go or conscious rewiring, because we're body, mind, soul, spirit, right? Energy. So all of this needs to work together or be in alignment. Sometimes you say, well, we're aligning with the divine will with our actions. It's the same thing. Our body needs to also be in alignment with that, what wants to come. So in my journey, as I was doing energy healing, yeah, it piqued my interest a little bit because when I was in my hypnotherapy school, I was surrounded people who are already seeing their guides. And I'm like, oh, so cool. How could I do that? And I'm like, do I really want, what if like some crazy guy came into like my whole thing and I was not ready for that? And then as I was, becoming more comfortable in healing and guiding people, things like that, the guides appear just on its own. First, I was like, am I hearing this right? Am I seeing this right? Can I trust this? And I was I was lucky in that time that I have more of the capacity to surrender, to know that what I am creating and where I am is, this is my creation. This is safe space. And I also um, have a very good practice in aligning myself with the higher power, God. I'm raised Catholic, so I do, pray to Jesus Christ and God and Mother Mary. And so I have those to help me become confident in that process. Later, I start to ask the questions like, okay, where are you from? Who are you? And things like that. I'm just being shown one by one of who they are. In the beginning, I was like, maybe, maybe not. Um, I, my curiosity led me then to learn other things from different teachers. And it took me a while until finally I start to resonate with this one teacher who is she's a shaman, and she has studied the Mesoamerican culture of shamanism. She herself is a curandera, I guess that what they call as a shaman. And she's like, well, spirits, spirit guides, they're all around, right? Those people who've passed, whose soul are moving a lot and on to a higher plane, they become spirit guides. And it doesn't mean that they have to be your lineage. They could be, because our lineage could, imagine, like, there are thousands of people who came prior to us. And imagine all those souls that have passed who are becoming spirits. So all you have to do when you have like you when you're starting to be in this process is that if you're ready for it, they are actually already waiting for you to say, hey, come help me. And the more that you are willing to invite them, the more that they are open to give you the messages. create that relationship. So guides are, spirit guides can come to you through a mutual relationship, meaning that you invite them. You in the Mesoamerican culture, you create offering. You create offering to say, hey, I really want a deeper connection with you. I really want to know more about you. I want to know, what in this time that I can do to help heal, maybe the lineage, who I am, because who I am carry a lot of those karmic lineages, right? The things that sometimes we see the pattern in ourselves could be a pattern that came through several lifetimes prior, through our parents, through our culture, and stuff like that. So when we ask those questions and being very powerful, as like, I'm partnering with you to help heal the world, for example, or I'm working with you to help heal my my health, my family, my finances, or whatever it is that you're working with. They are here and wants to help. So I hope that answered your question. I know it's kind of like a long way of going in there.
Yeah, and I think that, and then just adding on, maybe you don't get to just choose right away. Like, I want to, I know you're here, and here's how I'd like you to, here's how I want to see you. Here's how I want to experience you. It's not going to work that way. And I think you get stuck in that loop, and like it's not happening. And I've been taking all these classes, and I've been trying this for 20 years, and it's not working. And it's, well, you have to start with what is working. And like for me, I found recently I've been really making note of when guidance comes in, it's often just like I think to do something, or like something as dumb as like, oh, I think to check my bank account. Like, I don't know, I could check it later, but I'm going to check it now. And it is not guidance that I would recognize as like, oh, a guide told me to. Is more like, this idea, I think I should. All right. And then I noticed that a bill just came in that or that something didn't post. Like, wait a minute, where is my water bill? This should be in here. And then I find out that like I did something wrong. I didn't hit send. It's like, well, I'm gonna get a late fee now, or get have my water turned off. Like, and it's like, but what I used to do is just be like, oh, I'm glad I looked. Now I'm like, thank you for reminding me of that, and just sort of the acknowledgement, and then it starts to feel like it is real. And I'm not saying like, well, I'm not getting what other people are getting. It's like, well, what I get is pretty cool. And there was another speaker that I was like listening to an interview that she did. I don't know, just because I like to check people out in advance. And one of the, and I was sort of like in the back of my head stressing about something, and people were calling in asking questions. It's like, and it said, okay, well, we have a question from Kate. And I was like, oh, this is for me. And I swear, it's like I could have picked other interviews that she did, or been watched her Instagram, but I just happened to have picked that one. And I was led to that because what the answer that Kate was given was actually kind of what I needed to hear. So immediately I was like, thank you. and it becomes an ongoing dialogue. So I'm not so pressed about like how this is presenting, and if I'm doing energy healing, oh, I'm not seeing stuff. It's like, it doesn't really matter. It's like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And I believe that if eventually that's what I want, then I can call that in. But at the moment, I need to work on what I am doing. And if I don't do that first, then I'm just going to be stuck here feeling like, oh, nothing's really working.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, I had that, right? Even in my energy work, it's like, is it really working right now? Does it really work? And a lot of it, it's like, well, you also have to, again, right, that self-belief, you have everything. It's like your guide keeps coming and popping up several times a day through that. Because at one point it was fine, and now she's like, it's bright again from your side. Anyway.
Are you talking about the lighting in here? It's driving me crazy. I know, I've been watching, it's like, I'm getting darker and darker. What is happening? I mean, like, I don't know, should I adjust?
It was like dark, but then it was shining again. It's like right now it's like, wait, but
I know, now I'm like in this weird, this hasn't happened yet. Right, I'm adjusting a little bit. So I've got like my soft lens on, kind of like, the actresses who like, they like make sure they have the soft lens on. Oh, look, something happened.
Oh, look at that.
I don't know. We're just going to go with it.
We're like, hey, they're coming to play. The guides are here coming to play as well. Yeah. And you know, especially with energy work, right? I mean, like, who can actually validate whether it's working or not until you finally like, oh, you know, you got to respond from the client what she's experiencing, or when you're focusing more. Because here's the thing as well, like we create, like the reality that we have in the world is created through words. We create it from the thoughts, because you and I are seeing two different things, right? And at any moment, your reality with my reality is very different, right? Right now, I see your, because like for you, it's like, oh, I'm so dark. I'm seeing it. It's like there's a ray of sun. So just like something like that. So the more that you can allow yourself in that moment to just kind of like, you know what, let me get curious here. Let me just be present. And that's something that the practice that I do for myself, that I, you know, if I can inspire other, is that when those thoughts come in, they're just there trying to create stories, right? Trying to like make sense of this reality. Well, in fact, when we're in the quantum field of energy, reality is not as we can see and think. There's no words. There's no word to describe what it is that's actually going through. So the more that we can allow ourselves to just be present in there, the more that whatever guidance, maybe it's just like a soft voice. Mine was just a little soft voice. And then images starting to appear. Or sometimes it was just like I was just being guided to move my hand to a certain way, or I was guided to play my gong, or play, you know, my sound heal, you know, sound bowls, part of the energy healing itself. When I allow myself to just sort of flow in that quantum field, that's when the experience of the healing and the healing work becomes more profound, because again, we're in that unlimited possibilities. And you just, sometimes I'm like, did I influence that to happen? I take pride of myself, of course, but it's not you. You're just channel, right? You're just playing in that field and helping to facilitate the healing. At the end of the day, your client who wants the healing is the one who's actually is doing the healing. You're just making sure that the right energy, environment, space, guides that wants to come through, messages that wants to come through, come.
And that's I did want to ask you in something you wrote, because I was checking you out in advance like I do. And you said something like, I feel like I'm very much a soul guide right now. Like, I found that fascinating. What does that mean?
So that when did I write?
I don't know. It was an Instagram. You're like, I did? I don't know.
Did I?
Well,
I
mean,
feel
obviously
like
it's something you've thought of. So
something I thought of a while back. I don't know which guide was writing. Just kidding. If you believe in your soul guide, I feel like if you're in, here's my thought. This is what I'm getting through. You're creating this summit. You have desire to help others. You have desire to help others to see things beyond what they believe they can see. That's a guide. And us who are right now watching you, you're souls. So what you're doing right now and what you believe as a soul guide is true. Because not everybody wants to be a guide. Not everybody has the push to. Like whatever you're doing right now, it's not a small feat. It requires a lot of work, time, concentration, focus, motivation to do so because you feel so called to do it. That's an honorable, calling to be able to guide. And in your work as well, I feel like you're not just giving people answers, you're giving them a way to be, to proceed, whether it's in the energy level or is in the in what you communicate to them. You show the path. And I feel like a lot of there are different light workers, right? There are light workers who are like, will just give in, for the one who's just gonna like fix things, or the one that will create the structure and things like that. You're a leader, right? You want to, because being a leader that's will not just sit around and say, nah, I'm just going to help in this level. With what you're creating right now is like up leveling. You want to up level people, and that's guiding. That's soul guiding.
Probably everybody who's watching this in some way says, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Because, we all do it in our own ways. And so it's almost like everybody is, but only some people want to be conscious of that and like work in that space. Kind of like what I was saying before. It's like, what do I do that I learned from all of these courses and classes? It's like, well, I'm kind of just doing what I was doing before. but I understand it better now. And I have more of a context for it. And I can use it has direction and I can it has more purpose to it. So yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
so we're all soul guides.
We are. And
But I understand what you're saying. It
yeah,
depends.
yeah. I
Like
mean,
looking,
if you want to also, again, the play of words, right?
right.
You could be a mother, not doing any work. You're also a soul guide. If you want to take yourself in that position as being a soul guide, because if you have children, you're guiding souls into this world to be who they can be. So it's a calling, because once you're opening up or you're being awakened in what your soul wants to, they're the guide who are guiding others, and there's also soul who are like, I'm gonna embrace you and help you. And there are also souls who are like, I'm just gonna do everything to create, to help you prop up, right? So it's it can be many things. It can be many things. And I feel like it's soul calling is soul calling. It could be, I love to just, I need to check what I was writing.
I know. Wow. It's like improv. Okay, go. But I answering the question. I think that's exactly what I was like asking, and you're answering it. So, and I think it's really relevant to this topic and to everybody who would be watching this. It's like whatever you're taking from it, that's the message to you, because we're all going to listen to it a little differently, have our own version of what that means to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We all have our own perceptions and reality that we're creating. And another thing is that this time, dimension, and space is not what we think as linear, right? And we could be feeling like we're talking right now on the 14th of November, but we could be in so many different parallel universe in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of this quantum field, that you could be whatever it is that you're supposed to be getting right now. It's exactly what you need to get right now. And you might be listening to this over and over, and you'll be getting so many different things. And, you could be in like a year from now, like, oh, let me remember that. And it could be something. It's just like the soul guide. I'm like, what did I write?
Yeah. Right. So it's like, yeah. And I think that makes so much sense. And it's something that we should all kind of stop for a moment and be like, okay, so what does that mean for me? Because it is sort of, if you're going to be in the spiritual space, it does come back to your soul. And like I think of it as soul purpose, not mission necessarily, because you can have lots of different things, but it's like, what in this moment, like what is it that your soul is like really feeling pulled to, being called to? And it's probably a lot bigger than I want to be able to see my guides. That's really cool. And I like that idea too. I'm not very clairvoyant. I would like to do that, but that's not the important part. That's like one little thing to do, but the purpose is so much bigger than that. It's kind of like what you were saying in the beginning. You are magic.
You are magic. And you said it beautifully. In fact, I don't know if you noticed, there's like a little orb that was just kind of trouble.
All kinds of stuff happening here. Well, Karen, this has been a lot of fun. I would and so interesting. I would love it if as we end, if you could just leave us with any like last thoughts, or if there's something that you want us to really have it as a takeaway from what we discussed, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, yes. Takeaway. I think we kind of cover a lot of ground today, but I would just want to leave one thing that hopefully this will 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 help a lot of people, especially in this journey of being limitless. Is like what you also keep saying is like you have to start from who you are, where you are right now. And I my biggest takeaway through my own spiritual journey, which that's the only know what I know, right, that I can impart, is that um the more that I can know who I am, not just like, oh yeah, I know I'm a Leo and I love the attention or this and that, but more of like I am who I am because I am unique, I am magic, I nobody else is like me. And everything that I've created, whether it's good or bad, is my own creation. Nobody else. I created this. It's like I need to give myself credit for whatever it is that I have done in life, whether I want to say that was amazing, or maybe some of it I was kind of like, oh shoot, I created that too. But just believing that you are a creator will help you to start owning all part of yourself, because what you need is to give yourself the love, the trust that nobody else can give. Because, and nobody else can ask you to become creator. You create yourself because you have the magic within you to be whoever you want. And the more that you can start from there and starting to see like, oh wow, I actually can do this. Oh wow, I actually, when I'm working energy, I'm actually, you know, eliminating so much negativity from that person. And look at how, that impact other people. And wow, if I'm doing it this way, I'm actually impacting. And this is something that I keep telling my clients, like, whatever you're working on in yourself, it's how you're impacting the world. So I know a lot of people like, I want to change the world. Great. I want you to change the world. Start from who you are, because the minute you change yourself, the world will change. Because that's where, once one peaceful, loving heart, you will have other people around you with peaceful and loving heart. And the more people with peaceful and loving heart, the next thing you know, we're going to have the world filled with peace and loving heart. And that's what I want to remind people of.